And then also, as Annie said, we're going to go and talk. We're going to talk some about letters of recommendation and the importance of those, and just some tips and things that you should probably be looking out for when you are working on those letters of recommendation. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So just to give you some background about Ohio University, the university was founded in 1804, which actually puts us among some of the oldest public universities in the United States. We are a completely comprehensive public university, and when I say comprehensive, I mean it. We have over 250 different undergraduate programs. So everything from business and engineering to fine arts, to health services and communications, anything that you would like to study, we probably have that at Ohio University. We are considered to be a mid to large size university, but we do have the feel of a much smaller community than that. And I'll tell you some reasons for that a little bit later on. And you can see, even though we do have master's and doctoral programs at the university, we are concentrating on the undergraduate experience. And you can see that by the proportion of undergraduate students to graduate students is quite a bit higher. And right now we do have over 1,500 international students from 116 different countries. Okay. Hope that everybody knows that rankings are not the best way to fully judge the quality of a university, but still wanted to provide you with a little bit of information regarding rankings for Ohio University. U.S. News and World Report ranks us 74th among U.S. public universities and 21st best buy based on the quality of academics in relation to cost. So that's a really important thing to know. But I think one of the best rankings that I like to refer to is that for student satisfaction, and we rank 4th in the nation for that. And that means that students are happy with the full experience they're getting at Ohio University. So everything from the academics to the social experience to the experiential learning, living on campus, all of those different things are adding up to very satisfied and very happy students. We also have some extremely strong academic programs. So as you can see, our journalism program consistently ranks in the top 10 in the United States, and our business program is currently ranked 15 among public university business programs. So we really are a high-quality educational institution with a lot to offer. In terms of where we're located, I'll show you a map in just a minute, but we are in the state of Ohio, in the beautiful southeastern part of it. It is a smaller city, and Athens is, and although you may be tied to the idea of living in a big city, I'd really urge you to expand your thinking on this. In a place like Athens, which has actually been rated the best small college town in the United States, you're going to get a really welcoming and close-knit community. Lots of friendly, helpful people. It's a safe place to be. It's a very, very good study environment. It's a real kind of quintessential U.S. university experience. So you'll have lots of opportunities to see what it's like to be a university student in the United States. And even though we are in a smaller town, you're still going to be able to find everything you need to stay busy and have fun. And if you do need a little bit of big city, kind of recreation every now and then, we do have a bus service that runs back and forth between Athens and Cleveland and Athens and Cincinnati for a very reasonable price. So you can get out and do some things on the weekends as well. Okay, so if you don't really have an idea of where Ohio is and where Athens is located, this will give you a little bit better idea about that. we just kind of cut off the western part of the U.S. because it's really about the Midwest anyway. So we just thought we'd show you that portion of the states. But you can see here, as I said, we're about 3 hours from Cincinnati, and we are about 3.5 hours from Cleveland and from Pittsburgh. And it's about a 6-hour drive to Washington, D.C. So just to give you an idea of kind of where we are in relation to some of the other big cities in the area. Now, even though we are a larger school, you can still really expect a lot of personalized attention. Our average undergraduate class size is 32 students, and we have a student-to-faculty ratio of 18:1. So there is a lot of opportunity for you to be able to get to know your professors, to get to know your classmates. Professors are very, very accessible to you outside of the classroom. They have regular office hours that you can go and see them. Some professors even answer your emails over the weekend. So they really are there to help support you and to make sure that you're successful in your academics. We also are very supportive of hands-on experiences at Ohio University. And that comes in a couple of different forms. First of all, we really encourage our undergraduate students to be involved in research. And you don't always get that at a larger university. Sometimes larger universities will reserve research for master's and PhD students, but we don't do that. And I think that really shows by the fact that we have a research fund, the Provost Undergraduate Research Fund, that is specifically designed for undergraduate students who would like to propose their own research projects. There are also lots of opportunities to work alongside your professors on their research projects as well. We have a fantastic Career and Leadership Development Center, and that can help you in finding internships and pursuing job placements in the United States. Sometimes that's a little bit of a difficult thing, but we can help you through some of the processes with that, especially with the internships. We also have something in our College of Engineering, which is called a co-op program. And if you're not familiar with what a co-op program is, that is something where you're able to alternate classroom time with paid work experience. So you actually get to have hands-on, real life work experience, kind of get to try out your area of study as a career. You're making important networking connections. So there's some really wonderful opportunities to get lots of practical real world experience at Ohio University. Another really important aspect of life at Ohio is the fact that we are a residential campus, a residential community. And so that means that we really want you to be able to become fully integrated into campus life, make friends, and it's also really convenient for you to be getting to your classes as well with living on campus. So in your first 2 years of study at Ohio University, you do live on campus, and then in your junior and senior years 3 and 4, you can choose if you'd like to remain on campus or if you would like to move off campus. We also have plenty of resources available on campus to help you stay happy and healthy and safe. And so we just want to make sure that you are well taken care of throughout your time at Ohio University. There is also so much going on campus all the time. And we want you to be successful, as I said, academically. We want you to be well-rounded. So for your academic success, we provide really great resources like our academic advising. We have an academic advancement center. If you're having some difficulties in any of your classes, you're able to go and get tutoring for that. A writing center. So perhaps you're having a little bit of trouble adjusting to the U.S. writing style for writing papers. We can help you with that. Resources include our library, which actually has more than 3 million print and electronic volumes. So that is really an impressive thing. We've got a fantastic recreation center, one of the largest student recreation facilities in the United States. And we are an NCAA Division I school as well. But I got to tell you, guys, if you're interested in soccer, I'm sorry to say we don't have a men's varsity soccer team, but we do have women's varsity soccer. Now, in terms of funding your education, I know this is a really important thing that I'm sure you and your parents want to know about. We do have merit-based scholarships available for international students who begin in the fall semester. Now, in order to be eligible for consideration, you do need to take either the SAT or the ACT exam. And so we look at a combination of your test scores and your high school grades for that. But there is no separate application required for the scholarship consideration, so we make it very, very easy for you. Additionally, if you don't receive one of the signature scholarships in your first year, there are still opportunities to receive upper class scholarships if you perform well after your first year of study. Additionally, many academic departments have their own scholarship opportunities as well. And then there are opportunities for employment on campus. And as international students, you are allowed to work up to 20 hours per week on campus. So that can help you earn some spending money, help cover some of your personal expenses. Okay, in terms of just our admission requirements for our incoming freshman students, of course, you have to be completing your college prep high school program, which you all are doing right now. We're looking for what we consider to be the equivalent of a B average on our grading scale. Now, if you're doing the IB, we'll be wanting to see an average of 5 across all of your higher level exams. There can be a little bit of variability in there, but in general, 5s and higher. Now, the other great thing with the IB is that if you do take those higher level exams, for any exam that you score 5 or higher, we can award some transfer credit, and it means you'd be getting credit towards your university studies already before you even begin at the university. Now, I mentioned that SAT and ACT scores are the basis for scholarships. However, if you're not interested in being considered for a scholarship, you actually don't have to take one of the exams. So, you know, if that's something that you're worried about and you're not concerned about scholarships, you can go ahead and just skip that piece of things. We do require proof of English proficiency, which I'm sure is not going to be any problem for you, for any of you students. We are looking for, in general, for most of our programs, a 71 on the internet-based TOEFL or a 6 on the IELTS, except for the programs in our College of Business. Our College of Business does have slightly higher requirements, so for that we are looking for at least an 80 on the TOEFL or a 6.5 on the IELTS. Okay, and then as far as application deadlines go, our early action deadline, which is a non-binding deadline, is December 1st. And what the early action means is that you will receive priority consideration for direct entry into the selective academic programs if you apply for something that's more selective, and also priority consideration for those merit scholarships I talked about. But we will continue to accept applications after that December 1st deadline, at least through February 1st. But generally speaking, we tend to end up extending that deadline beyond February 1st as well. So that's a little bit about Ohio University and what we have to offer you. At this time, I just wanted to go ahead and see if we've got any questions. I saw a couple of questions pop up that real quickly that I didn't get to. So if there are any questions about Ohio University at this point in time, I'd be happy to take those.
Hey, Vicki, that was me asking some of these questions, just because I know that some of our students don't know these things, so they may not know to ask these questions. For example, I know, for example, they get a little confused between like Ohio State versus Ohio University.
Sure.
So maybe just a quick, just what you need to know that is the main difference, because public, size, obviously location, but
Right.
just a quick, some difference. And then maybe clarifying the co-op, because students still are a little confused about OPT and how that works. That would be helpful.
Sure. Okay. So yes, Ohio State University and Ohio University are two different schools. We are both public universities, so it can be very, very confusing. The way I like to explain it is they're bigger and we're older. We were there first. So we were, having been founded in 1804, we were actually the first university in the state of Ohio. In terms of size, as you know, I showed you, we have about 24,000 students altogether on our Athens campus, whereas Ohio State University is more in the vicinity of about 60,000 students, so quite a bit larger than we are. They are also a lot in a more urban setting in the city of Columbus, and as I said, we're located in Athens, which is a smaller town. We do offer many of the same academic programs. They are also a fantastic school, but those are some of the differences between the two of us. Regarding co-op programs, as I said, those are offered just in our College of Engineering. But with the co-op program, the way that would work is that you might have your CPT be what you would do for your work experience, so that you're allowed to do work that's related to your academic area of study and still be on your student visa. So that's how you would be able to manage doing both the academic work and the actual professional work as well.
Could they, because usually when you do a co-op, that's like a semester in lieu of classes, for example. And then would you extend another semester to complete your studies?
Yes. Oh, thank you for that. Yes, actually, if you do a co-op, it's actually going to be a 5-year program because you do at least 2 work experiences. So it does extend it by a year, but you're also making money, so it does help cover your costs as well.
Does it also affect the OPT hours?
Mm-hmm. That's
I'm
a
not
really
exactly
good
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do need to find that out. So I can get back to you, Annie, with that information to share with your students. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure if that takes away from the OPT hours.
Yeah, and for students, if you have no idea what we're talking about, OPT and CPT, that just means that you are allowed to apply to work. Because everyone says, oh, you can only work 20 hours, you can only work on campus. That's the limitation of being an international student. But you can apply for a special jobs where you can make real money, but it's limited also in terms of the hours. So OPT is usually after you graduate, I believe, and CPT can be during, right?
Right.
So, and then there was a question of maybe even the OPT hours extending, right, based on STEM majors. I don't know if that's still going to happen.
Yeah, as of now, that's still the case. We can extend from 1 year to, I believe, it's at 29 months if you're in one of the STEM fields. So you can spend a little bit longer time working in the United States still on your student visa if you're in the STEM area.
Okay, so students, remember that. Everyone says you can't work, but you can for time. So for some students, that's enough of a really good experience to return to Brazil with, great work experience for a year, even as a co-op. That's like a real job. Actually, I did a co-op when I was in college. I worked for 6 months at Johnson & Johnson, consumer products, and, shampoos and things and soaps. And it was, I took a semester off, and I did that, and it did delay my graduation by just 1 semester, but the work experience that I got was like amazing. And then after that, I had like 1 million job offers. So it's worth it. And the fact that you guys, because the question of can you work after school, right, as an international, since the chances of getting a, like a long-term work visa can be difficult, having these co-ops is a really great way to get that work experience during school, and then you can extend your visas. And then your school experience is, meaning spend a little more time. Because why rush? Why rush to graduate, right?
Exactly.
What's the rush? What's the rush to grow up? Anyone else have any questions? I can open up your microphones, I think. Hold on, let me see if I can do that. But sometimes it gets like super noisy. Let me just try it, and then. Okay, now it's a free for all. Okay, there's lots of noise, but let's see if that's bad. Does anyone have any questions they want to speak up or just put it in the chat, specifically about Ohio? No? All right. Or put it in the chat box, anyone? Okay. Why don't we move on then? And I'm gonna mute everyone. It's kind of noisy. And then Vicki, why don't you just continue with your presentation?
Great. Well, now that you know a little bit about Ohio University, we're going to move on and talk about the importance of letters of recommendation in the application process for university admissions. And as the title says, I highly recommend them. So let's just dive into this and see what the deal is with letters of recommendation. So what is the big deal? Why do we need letters of recommendation? Well, first of all, are they required? Well, that depends on the school. For some schools, yes, they're mandatory. For some, including Ohio University, they are optional. And in some, like the University of California schools, they don't want letters of recommendation at all. So the message here is that you need to pay attention to what each of the universities is asking for in their application instructions, because every university requires slightly different things. So you don't want to be sending information to a university that they have not asked for, but you also want to make sure that you have completed your application at the places that do want things like letters of recommendation. So really pay attention to those instructions for each specific university that you apply to. So most schools, like Ohio University, use a holistic approach when reading applications. And what we mean by a holistic approach is that we take every piece of information that we have about you into consideration. So the more information we have, the more informed decision we can make. We know that grades and test scores are not all there is to you. You are a whole person, and we want to know who you are as a whole person. So letters of recommendation are extremely helpful in allowing us to see who you are outside of the grades and outside of the test scores. It allows us to judge your potential for success at our universities and also see whether you're a good match for our campuses as well. So as an admissions officer, we are building a class of students. We have certain things that we're looking for. Different universities are looking for different things, and letters of recommendation are a way that can help us determine whether or not you are a good match for that class. Okay. So what if a school lists letters of recommendation as optional? Do you really need to submit them? Well, no. The easy answer is no, but I say do it anyway. If they say it's optional, go ahead and send those, because as I said, having that information as an admissions officer really allows me to see who you are and make you stand out in my mind. So I want to like you. I want to know more about you and how you operate in the classroom, outside the classroom, and grades alone aren't going to do that. So if a school says those letters of recommendation are optional, I would highly recommend that you get them anyway. So who should write those letters of recommendation? Again, Pay attention to what the university is asking for. That is key. Some of them, for most schools, usually teachers or your high school counselor will be acceptable. In some cases, a coach or employer may be acceptable. In general, I would recommend having someone in a core discipline. So if you were wanting to do mathematics or if you're wanting to do biology, have someone in that subject area write the letter of recommendation. This doesn't necessarily have to be someone from your favorite class, but you want it to be someone who knows you well. So you want to choose wisely. So that can be a current teacher or a teacher that's known you for a while in a number of different settings. So maybe you have a teacher that's also your coach for a certain team or a certain activity. That would be someone who could speak about who you are in a lot of different situations. And of course, you want someone who can speak enthusiastically about you and tell us about your character and your strengths and why you are a good person to be admitted to our university. So keep those things in mind when choosing who you want to have to write your letters of recommendation. But really, probably what you all want to know is what is that secret recipe for getting the perfect letter of recommendation? What kind of ingredients are necessary? Well, of course, you're not writing the letter, so it's not completely in your control. But putting together those ingredients is something that you need to be able to do. So as I've said, you already need to find someone who knows you well, but that can take some, but can talk some about work on your part. You want to establish a relationship with whoever it is that's going to be writing your recommendation, and that's really important so that they understand who you are, what makes you tick, what really your strengths are. So some ways to establish those relationships: make sure you're really actively participating and showing interest in their classes, going above and beyond the assignments and the requirements that they have in class. And if you're struggling in their classes, really seek them out for additional assistance. I can give you a personal example of that from when I was in high school. I was taking calculus, and math is not my area. And so I was struggling with the calculus class. And so I went in and met very regularly with my teacher for calculus. She ended up writing some great letters of recommendation for me that helped me to get scholarships. So even if you are struggling with something, there are ways that you can show that you are really dedicated to the learning process. And that can speak volumes about the type of student that you are. Do be considerate of your teachers and counselors' time and make your request early. It's very difficult on teachers and counselors who are writing lots of letters of recommendation to have students come in and ask for a letter of recommendation that is due the following week. Don't do that. Also, the end of the semester can be a difficult time to ask because that's when your teachers are really working on exams and things like that. So you want to do it earlier, probably earlier in the semester, or even possibly the summer prior to your last year of high school. That gives them lots of time to work on it, to think about it, and also really paint a positive picture of who you are as a person. I would recommend no later than 1 month prior to the deadline, because after that, it's really just not a good not considerate of the time of your professor or your teachers to do that. So you want to be really respectful. I would also say that you should ask your teacher or your counselor in person. It's all right, I would say, to send an email to set up an appointment with them, to go ahead and ask them to write the letter, but actually do the asking in person, because it just seems much more personalized in that they're likely to see that you're really wanting their assistance and they're not just looking for something generic. So I would ask in person. Okay, some more on the secret recipe for strong recommendations. Do take time to meet with your recommenders. Like I said, you can send an email to set up an appointment with them. It's going to do both of you a lot of good in order to meet with each other. And they'll have a much easier time talking about who you are in detail. And that's what you really want. For example, the College Board recommends that you talk to them about your class participation, your personal qualities and strengths. Remind them of specific work or projects that you're proud of from their classes. Tell them what you've learned. Mention challenges that you've overcome. Those are all different things that are very helpful for us to read about in letters of recommendation. So basically, you want to make this as easy for your recommenders as possible. Give them the information that will allow them to provide that specific information about you and your achievements and your potential for succeeding in the university setting. Also, please inform them how they're supposed to submit their letters. Now, generally speaking today, most letters are going to be uploaded electronically, particularly if you are using the Common Application. That is one that the recommenders will upload the letter of recommendation that way. But if there's another way that they're supposed to send it in, if they're supposed to mail it in, provide them with the appropriate address, an envelope that they can seal in, all of those kinds of things so that they know what they need to do. Okay, and then of course, politely remind them of the deadlines a week or two in advance of when the recommendation is due. And again, politely do that. Make sure that they still have all the information that they need. See if they have any additional questions for you. So that's a really good time to check in and make sure things are going as smoothly as they should be. Finally, say thank you. You want to make sure that your teachers understand how thankful you are for them taking their time and their effort to recommend you for something that is going to be impacting you for the rest of your life. So this is something that you want to make sure that they know that you really highly value. And I would say doing that with a short handwritten note is probably the best way to go about it. Again, this is a more personalized way to do that than perhaps sending an email. So just letting them know how much you appreciate the work that they put into the letter of recommendation on your behalf. And then also keep them informed about your success with your admissions. Let them know when you've been accepted to different universities, because they have invested time and energy into helping you to get into those universities. So I'm sure that they want to know when you have been successful as well. So that being said, I will say thank you to you, and let's go back and open things up to questions. Again, I saw a few pop up that I don't quite know how to get to that came up in the chat. So if we want to, I don't know if we want to unmute again, Annie, or what we want to do.
Sure. Those again were like my questions, and more again, just I know that sometimes students have these kinds of questions. So even though I answer them, it's always nice when you answer them.
Sure.
It's can you describe maybe for students if you have an example of a letter of recommendation that you remember that really stood out for you. I think that sometimes students and teachers forget that the letter is still sort of a story about the student. It's
Right.
It's not a transcript. It's not, right? So is there anything that you can maybe just give a specific example of a letter of recommendation, that maybe the format or the story or something that you remember?
I think that what you're saying about it being a story is really the key to the whole thing. Is we want to know, your story as a student. In terms of your academic abilities and in terms of your persistence and things like that. So I think probably the kinds of letters of recommendation that always stand out to me have those very specific examples about students. One in particular this last year that came across my desk when I was reviewing files talked about a student who was struggling with some personal difficulties. Now, it wasn't necessary for the teacher to talk about what kind of difficulties, but just mention that there were difficulties with a family. They were going to be the first student, the first one from their family to be attending university, or who has ever applied to attend university. And the teacher really talked about how persistent that student was in making sure that they understood the subject area. So, making sure that they were participating in the class. As I mentioned before, just like what I did, that student was making sure that they understood all of the concepts that were being taught, and that they basically were preparing themselves for that university experience, in spite of the fact that they didn't really come from a background that was familiar with doing that, being a first-generation student coming to the university. But they really showed a lot of self-motivation. And so having specific stories about how the student showed that kind of motivation in the classroom, motivation in working in small groups with other students, those were the kinds of things that really stood out for me.
Great. That's helpful. Is there any case when a letter of recommendation was negatively impacts a student? Do you have any situations like that?
That can happen. I think a lot of that has to do with the choosing wisely in terms of who you ask to do your letter of recommendation, and making sure that you have taken all of those steps, that it's someone who is willing and able to speak enthusiastically about your character traits. I have seen recommendations that are not very positive, where the teacher will say that they recommend the student with reservation. So you really want to try and avoid those kinds of situations. So again, really pay attention to who you're asking and making sure that you have made those connections with that person so that they can speak about you in a really positive light.
Right. Remember, students, the teacher is the one who sends the letters, not you. So you may have no idea, right, what the teacher is doing. So you need to make sure that you know
Exactly.
the teacher well. Do you, I don't know if it depends on the university as far as, comparing the teacher versus a counselor recommendation. Do you evaluate them any differently from each other?
At Ohio University, in my experience, I don't tend to evaluate them differently. I have different expectations generally about what they're going to tell me about you as a student. Because your counselor can generally speak a little bit more about you comprehensively, where there's going to speak more specifically about their experience with you in their classroom. So, they're telling me slightly different stories is what it is. And those stories are going to, again, give me a fuller picture of who you are. So it's not that I value one over the other. It's just that they're going to give me slightly different information.
Okay, great. I'm going to open up now, because I'm monopolizing your time, to everybody. Now free for all. We can hear. Does anyone have any questions that they have for Vicki about the school or about letters or anything else? Co-ops, anything is scholarships, anything. If anyone has any questions. Or if you are shy, please feel free to write it in the chat. Is everyone shy today? Sometimes we're a little shy. We may not have any questions tonight. I have a lot of questions. Are you coming back to Rio or to Brazil this year?
My plan had been to come back the end of September, and now it turns out that my colleague is going to be coming. So if the KIC Univassist tour is stopping at your school again, you will have an opportunity to meet my colleague Lori, who is wonderful, but who can also give you great information about the university.
Okay, great. Yes, they are coming. For those of you, I know out of school, but the KIC tour Ohio will be coming to a school Eleva on the 22nd, I want to say, of September. That will be posted. So if you, there are some events that are public and some that are private. Actually, there's an Education USA fair too next weekend. I'll post that too. Try to visit as many fairs and events as possible. And obviously, if you can make this one, you guys can attend the one at Escola Eleva if you're part of the Eleva Pelo Mundo project, okay? I just see something in the chat, Vicki, from Maria Eduardo. Do you think it's having a principal writing a letter is a good idea? And I guess that as opposed to a teacher, I'm assuming. I guess it's more like, is the title more important or the content more important, maybe?
The content is definitely more important than the title. If your principal has, extensive knowledge of you as a person and your character and your academic abilities, then it's fine to have the principal write the letter. But we're not going to be impressed just because you've had a principal write a letter if that letter is a very generic letter. What we want is that good content, that good story about who you are. So don't be concerned so much with the whole thing about having someone more prestigious than a teacher do your recommendations.
And just FYI, Vicki, that's sort of common here. The whole titles, I don't know, like, right, like the titles, that kind of thing. People tend to put a lot of value on that regardless of who they are. And so remember, guys, we are also in touch with the diretores, coordinadores of the high schools. We know of students who are applying to train them on how to write better recommendation letters, because we don't want them to write about like your attendance, like we don't want them to write about your grades even, because we know that already. The universities know that already, because you're sending the grades. So they're supposed to write about you. That's also new for them, okay? But just know that we are also trying to work much harder with the teachers and the directors and the coordinators so that they are prepared that they may have to write a letter for you. But it's still up to you to get them to do it.
Correct.
But they can come to us with questions and we have a little manual for them in Portuguese to help them write the letters. Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm unmuting everyone again. I can hear any dogs today, so. Everyone okay? No questions? Come on, guys, practice your English. We have
practice with me.
A real American on the phone, on the call. I'm sure you're tired of talking to me all the time. All right. I guess it's a little late for them. Oh, someone's speaking. Speak.
Oh, go ahead.
I can study journalism and engineering and more like, I don't know, I can take like 2 courses and something.
Okay. So the possibility, there are possibilities in the U.S. to do a double major or a major and a minor. Yes, where you'll be able to study more than one subject at a time. That is possible to do. Now, if you're going to study just two things that are very, very different, like journalism and engineering, you need to do some careful planning with your academic advisor to make sure that you can fit all the coursework in a nice, timely manner. But you certainly can do that. Some students choose to do double majors in areas that overlap a little bit, but some students will do things in completely different areas. So if you want to be a journalist who writes about technical issues, then of course it makes perfect sense for you to be looking at journalism and engineering. So that would be possible. That answer your question?
There are more courses than just journalism and biology and I don't know. There are some extra courses or something like that.
The number of courses that you take are still, for graduation, is still going to be the same number of credit hours. So generally speaking, you need to take 120 credit hours in order to graduate from Ohio University. Now, some of those credit hours are what are called general education requirements. And regardless of what your major is, you're going to fulfill those general education requirements. So those are going to be the same whether you're in one major or in two majors. But then the planning that comes in is then making sure that you are fulfilling your major requirement courses in a good sequence so that you're not adding extra time onto your studies. Anybody else going to be brave?
Hi.
Can you guys say your names when you speak? That's helpful.
It's Maria.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Well, I went to a US Education USA boot camp once, and they talked about essays and recommendation letters there, and they talked about like overwriting personal information about you on your recommendation letter. And I don't know, I would like to know a little bit more about what's safe to say and what is like overwriting about yourself.
In letters of recommendation or in your statement of purpose?
No, in letters of recommendation, because they kind of showed us 3 letters of recommendation and one was good. And I didn't actually got like what was the problem. 3.
Okay. All right. So basically, by overwriting, they mean that they just shared too much information, or is that kind of what they were talking about?
I think they were telling the teachers talk so too much of this in personal life, or like that.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit on me. Annie, can you hear her better?
I think
Yeah.
she said, I'm gonna mute everybody else. I think what she said is that, yeah, it's a case of oversharing, like putting too much personal information and sort of what is too much. And because I think maybe particularly in Brazil, people do get very personal.
Right.
And teachers and students also, I mean, in the sense like teachers hug their students even,
Right.
So there's
Yeah.
and in the US you would be arrested for that.
Exactly.
So, right, and here it's very common. You hug your principal, so this thing of where's that line? Maybe a teacher may think that he or she is helping, but maybe it's maybe it's not.
Yeah. I think in terms of that, as far as that goes, you want to make sure that, again, you've given the teacher the kind of information that you would like them to share in terms of your academic qualities, your character, things like that, but you don't need to tell them your story of your entire life and expect them to share that. That's not what we want to have there. If you have more personal stories you want to tell, those are some of the things that are better for essays and statements of purpose. But we really want the teachers to be talking about your academic potential and your ability their perceived ability for you to succeed in the university. So anything that falls outside of that realm, I would consider to be overriding.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Maria. All right. Well, we're coming up until 9 p.m. here, so we're an hour ahead of you. So maybe they're starting to lose their gas here.
Okay.
So, is there anything else that you think that we need to take away from Ohio or rec letters?
Okay, if my contact information is there. If you have any follow-up questions, or you just were a little bit too shy to ask tonight, just jot down my email address and feel free to send me an email. I'm more than happy to help. Now, so you know, I'm going to be traveling for the next few weeks. So if you do email me, I would recommend using that first email address, the West V. But know that you're going to get an automatic response, first of all, because I'm on the road. However, I will be checking my emails, and so trying to stay on top of those as much as possible. So I will try to get back to you as quickly as I can. I'm going to be in India, but I'll try and be there for you as much as you need me. And then I think I just want you to know kind of what a special place that Ohio University is. It is someplace that, the campus is beautiful, the people are friendly, the professors are very supportive, very accessible. Everything at the university is geared for you to be successful, both academically, personally, as well as for your success after you graduate. So that's really what Ohio University is about.
It is a beautiful campus.
Yeah.
Well, just to let you guys know, there is a lot of information on their website. So, we don't have time to go over everything that Ohio offers. And the scholarships are actually pretty generous. And, and the cost of education is pretty low, for a school of this size. So I think you guys, although, later on, we kind of do a summary of the schools that do the webinar, so they have all kind of like the fast facts. And for you guys who can afford to pay partially for university abroad, like I say, guys, if you can pay PUCI, which is, Vicki, a private university here in Rio and also in Minas. So if you can pay for a private school, a private university in Brazil, you can afford in Ohio with partial scholarships. The price is actually very reasonable. So do your homework.
I was going to say, keep in mind too that when you're looking at the cost of the university, what we list as the cost includes everything. So we're talking about it includes housing, it includes your meal plan, it includes your health insurance, all those things. Whereas if you might be looking at a university in Brazil, those are different costs that you would have to add on. Your housing may not be part of the package and things like that. So make sure that you're taking all of those costs into consideration when you're doing some comparison shopping.
Yeah, and I like to do that for them. When their gym and their parking and, stuff like that, it actually, honestly, it ends up about the same for a private university here is starting to cost what a public university in the U.S. costs. So I like to do that comparison. And then when you really show students the numbers and the parents, it starts to look. Anyways, all right. Well, thank you so much for your time. You're taking time out of your evening for us.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you
We can
for joining us.
Thank you, Vicki, and I will follow up with you later. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out tonight. I know you're tired after a long day at school. So, good night, everybody.
Everyone have a good night.